Billionaire Shark Tank investor Mark Cuban on NPR's podcast, How I Built This, said that if he was broke as a joke and had to rebuild his wealth, he would do the following, and I quote, "I'd get a job as a bartender at night and the sales job during the day and start working."
Because regardless of whether markets are crashing, housing, crypto, stocks, you will never crash as long as you obtain and secure and enhance the ability to sell something, not because solely it benefits you, but because it will benefit somebody else. It will help another person become happy, because that's all we're doing. We are flipping feelings.
Mr. Cuban on the same podcast added, and I quote, "Once I realized I could sell, and once I learned that selling was about helping people, then it almost became easy. Then it was just a question of effort."
That is what has kept my business alive since 2010, my ability to sell.
Contributing editor for Inc. magazine, Jeff Hayden, wrote, and I quote, "I asked about 20 business owners and CEOs to name the one skill they feel contributes the most to their success. What did every one of them say? Sales skills. They all felt success is almost impossible in any field without solid sales skills."
You have to encounter any setting where you are speaking with people, where you're communicating, where you're interacting with the mentality, with the philosophy of, how can I help you, my brother, my sister? How can I help you? So you separate yourself from the pack, from the majority of people who always approach things with their hand out. How can you help me? No, how do you help the other person?
The Harvard Business Review reported that the best salespeople help others. The article goes on to read, "The best salespeople I have observed regularly pass their knowledge on to less tenured, less experienced salespeople with no expectation of anything in return." Sean Achor, author of Big Potential, found that people who are social support providers at work altruists, are a whopping 40% more likely to receive a promotion.
Remember, love thy neighbor as though you love yourself. Probably one of the most repeated commandments, probably the most repeated commandments in the Bible, 8 times. Love thy neighbor. And the only way you do that is by preparing yourself, enhancing your ability, which is why I always say, the part on my spreadsheet, that sheet, labeled free education, is probably the most powerful tab on the spreadsheet, because it has all the resources to be able to learn how to do anything that you want with your life. So you can acquire any technical ability you want to learn.
How to sell your products and services, doing SEO, essentially optimizing your website or configuring your website so it can be seen by more users of search engines, how to sell on YouTube, how to sell advertising on Facebook, how to run your own business.
AI, the most advanced and cutting edge practices and disciplines, they're all right there. Free education tab. Go ahead and tap into it, because that will allow you to build products that you can sell.
To author his book, Rich Habits, The Daily Success Habits of Wealthy Individuals, Thomas Corley interviewed 233 wealthy individuals, 177 of whom were self-made millionaires with at least $160,000 in annual gross income and $3.2 million in net assets. Mr. Corley found that 85% of these wealthy individuals read 2 or more books a month for education and learning purposes. 63% listen to educational audiobooks during their commute to work. 88% read 30 minutes or more each day for purposes of education and learning.
You know, I stay doing the knowledge, baby.
Groundswell, nationwide bestseller, how to best use social technology, such as the app on which you're viewing this video right now. When to Rob a Bank, a book I got from my man 100 Grand on the Other Side of the Planet. Cash Flow Quadrants by my man RK. Knowledge, how to build civilization in the aftermath of a cataclysm. You want to learn how to build a radio with 2 twigs. Public speaking. Sales, Bible. I even got a book to whoop that ass. And I paid for all of my books, whereas you can tap into all the resources to which I link you in our spreadsheet absolutely for free. The spreadsheet's free, but the crack costs money. Oh yeah.
The true and living God got me away from having someone almost shoot me because I said hi to that person's girlfriend, getting me away from a situation where someone almost plunged a knife into my back. That's the only true and living God. And if you constantly commune with that infinite power, every time that you breathe in, if you find yourself with anxiety and you say, man, I want to get to my business, but I feel sick today. I don't feel that I have the energy to do so. I prefer to sit on my couch, watch Netflix. In those situations, that's when you have to stay true to your objectives. But how do you do that? You calm yourself. You have something called a default mode network that starts to ruminate and starts to think about your past failures, about all your worries, about all your problems, diseases, everything that stops you from doing everything that you want. And when you breathe softly and you breathe in God's infinite force, his wisdom, and exhale all the ignorance, all the anxiety.
On Thursday, April 23rd, 2015, Yale researchers released a study finding that people were able to reduce DMN activity, which signals that a person is either worrying, anxious, or simply has negative feelings overwhelming his or her mind state more by meditating, performing 3 meditation practices to be exact, one of which resembling the breathing exercise that I just showed you, breathing while paying attention to the sensation of your breath, then by performing an active cognitive task. First, the investigators scanned the brains of the participants using an MRI machine. Then, while the MRI machine scanned activity in the DMN and other parts of the brain, the investigators instructed the participants to first meditate. Then they told them to indicate whether an adjective that they saw on a screen described him or her by pressing a yes or no button. So, for instance, let's say you were one of the study's participants. They would put you in a machine, and once you see the word, the adjective, ugly, for instance, you would have the option of pressing a button labeled yes or a button labeled no. Of course, if you were one of my viewers, you would always press the no button because you are so beautiful to me. This way, the investigators were effectively able to discover that yes, people are able to reduce DMN activity associated with all these negative outcomes more by meditating than by performing that active cognitive task. The study's authors went on to report that according to other research, increased DMN activity interferes with optimal cognitive performance. So if you want to think clearly, meditate. Increased DMN activity is also associated with a number of mental disorders, including but not limited to anxiety, addiction, depression. Mind wandering and self-related processing contributes to ruminating, which is a feature of these mental disorders, and decreased well-being. Meditation, in contrast, which is associated with decreased DMN activity, has been shown to improve attention and working memory performance. The study's authors went on to conclude that since all these studies find that mindfulness training has been effective in treating pain, anxiety, depression, the neural mechanism by which meditation results in clinical benefits is by reducing DMN activity. So now you may say, Neal, I'm itching to click the back button because now you're digressing. You started the video by saying that we had to enhance our sales skills. We had to enhance our ability to sell something so we can be immune to all of these crashing market conditions. Hold on. For you to sell a product or service, that is probably one of the most mentally challenging tasks that you will ever execute. That's why it pays so well. It's a requirement. And now take a look at all of the practices and habits of wealthy people, of people who are millionaires and billionaires that I just reported. They read, they're always looking to enhance their abilities by constantly educating themselves and practicing what they learn. So you need to have attention on deck, on your P's and Q's, stay on point. You have to have 8 eyes and ears revolving around your skull. Plus, if you don't calm all those negative emotions that try to overwhelm you and try to turn you into something that you are not, you become a pessimist. Director of the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center, Dr. Martin Seligman, and his executive director, Peter Shulman, measured how good both pessimistic and optimistic people were at selling insurance. First, the duo got 94 MetLife reps to complete a questionnaire that scored their attitudes. The salespeople had to communicate how they would potentially feel when encountering hypothetical, adverse, and advantageous situations. The agents who scored above the 50 percentile in responding to negative events optimistically sold 29% more insurance in their first year and sold 130% more insurance in their second year than agents who scored in the bottom half. Agents who scored in the top 10% by responding to negative events optimistically sold 88% more insurance in their first 2 years than those who scored in the bottom 10%. The most obvious limitation of the first study sticks out like Elon Musk on YouTube. Of course, the most successful salespeople are going to be more optimistic about everything. They're closing all day, homeboy. I was relieved the investigators acknowledged my observation by writing that success may alter explanatory style in the optimistic direction, meaning that even if they started the job with nothing but a sob story, successfully flipping more insurance plans than the average slouch changes your disposition. So Dr. Seligman and Mr. Showman conducted another survey. This time, nonetheless, they had 104 people fill out the questionnaire before they landed the job as an insurance agent. The people who scored above the 50 percentile when responding to negative events optimistically sold 25% more than the bottom half in their second 6 months of employment after the first few months of training. The agents scoring in the top 25% when responding to negative events optimistically sold 57% more than the bottom quartile in their second 6 months of employment. And the revelations don't stop there. Here's yet another reason why you have to keep your brain on point with your cognitive enhancement practices like meditation and reading. At MetLife Insurance, applicants have to undergo a selection tool called the Attitude Index Battery. The industry widely uses this test to see how much an applicant's profile matches the profile of successful insurance agents. The AIB is a self-report questionnaire that asks the applicant undisguised questions in 6 major areas: self-assessment of job-relevant skills and abilities, career expectations, motivating goals, concerns about career, satisfaction with present job, and potential clients. In the first study, agents with AIB scores above the passing grade sold 32% more insurance in their first 2 years than those scoring below it. Furthermore, agents who scored high on the optimism and aptitude test, meaning that they were optimistic and had great industry knowledge, sold a whopping 196% more in their second year than agents who scored in both the lower half of the ASQ, the optimism test, and below the AIB passing score. In study 2, agents who scored in the top half of the AIB sold 37% more than those in the bottom half during the second 6 months of their employment. Know your product and stay positive, and there will always be a market for you and the brain, Rod Squad and the brain.